Okay, I am back. Change of scene now. I am now going to read on page 719. It's from book 9. I am Laertes Son. This is where Odysseus is going to tell who he is. He is on the island of Phaeacia, and he will be... I apologize. Quiet. Shh. He is now on the island of Phaeacia, and he is going to be telling his story to King Alcinous. The island on which Odysseus lands turns out to be Phaeacia, an island kingdom ruled by King Alcinous. In books 6 to 8, the shipwrecked Odysseus is found by the king's daughter and brought to the royal palace. The king and queen offer to assist him on his journey home. At a banquet at their palace, a poet sings stories about the Trojan War, which sadden the hero. Odysseus then reveals his identity and tells the story of what happened to him after he left Troy. Now, this was the reply Odysseus made. I am Laertes' son, Odysseus. Men hold me formidable, for guile in peace and war. This fame has gone abroad to the sky's rim. My home is on the peaked sea mark of Ithaca under Mount Neon's wind-blown robe of leaves, in the sight of other islands, Dulichion, same-wooded Zachnithius, Ithaca being most lofty in that coastal sea and northwest, while the rest lie east and south. A rocky isle, but good for a boy's training. I shall not see on earth a place more dear, though I have been detained long by Calypso, loveliest among goddesses, who held me in her smooth caves to be her heart's delight, as Circe of Aea, the enchantress, desired me and detained me in her hall. But in my heart I never gave consent. Where shall a man find sweetness to surpass his own home and his parents? In far lands he shall not, though he find a house of gold. What of my sailing then from Troy? What of those years of rough adventure weathered under Zeus? The wind that carried west from Ilion brought me to Ismarus on the far shore, a strong point on the coast of the Sacones. I stormed that place and killed the men who fought. Plunder we took, and we enslaved the women to make division, equal shares to all. But on the spot I told them, back and quickly, out to sea again. My men were mutinous, fools on stores of wine. Sheep after sheep they butchered by the surf, and shambling cattle feasting, while fugitives went inland, running to call to arms the main forces of the Sacones. This was an army trained to fight on horseback, or, where the ground required, on foot. They came with dawn over that terrain like the leaves and blades of spring. So doom appeared to us. Dark word of Zeus for us are evil days. My men stood up and made a fight of it, backed on the ships with lances kept in play from bright morning through the bright blaze of noon, holding our beach, although so far outnumbered. But when the sun passed toward unyoking time, then the Achaeans, one by one, gave way. 6 benches were left empty in every ship that evening when we pulled away from death. And this new grief we bore with us to sea. Our precious lives we had, but not our friends. No ship made sail next day until some shipmate had raised a cry 3 times for each poor ghost unfleshed by the Sacones on that field. Now Zeus, Lord of Cloud, roused in the north of storm against the ships in driving veils of squall, moved down like night on land and sea. The bows went plunging at the gust. Sails cracked and lashed out strips in the big wind. We saw death in that fury, chopped the yards, unshipped the oars, and poured for the nearest lee. Then 2 long days and nights we lay offshore, worn out and sick at heart, tasting our grief, until a third dawn came with ringlets shining. Then we put up our mast, hauled sail and rested, letting the steersman and the breeze take over. So, we have a situation here where the men were mutinous. Had they listened to Odysseus and just simply gone and pillaged the land and left, they would have been fine. But the men became greedy and stayed longer than they should have, giving the Cicones a chance to go get more men, and then they ended up losing many. These were not heroic actions, and had they listened to Odysseus, they would have been fine. So that was the first punishment that was set aside there by Poseidon. The men obviously were punished on that one. So that was the Cicones. Now the next that they are going to get, this is on page 21, the Lotus Eaters from book 9. I might have made it safely home that time, but as I came round Malea, the current took me out to sea, and from the north a fresh gale drove me on, past Cytherea. 9 days I drifted on the teeming sea, before dangerous high winds. Upon the 10th we came to the coastline of the Lotus Eaters, who live upon that flower. We landed there to take on water. All ship companies mastered alongside for the midday meal. Then I sent out 2 picked men and a runner to learn what race of man that land sustained. They fell in soon enough with Lotus Eaters who showed no will to do us harm, only offering the sweet lotus to our friends. But those who ate this honeyed plant, the lotus, never cared to report nor to return. They longed to stay forever, browsing on that native bloom, forgetful of their homeland. I drove them, all 3 wailing, to the ships, tied them down under their rowing benches, and called the rest. All hands aboard, come, clear the bench, and no one taste the lotus, or you lose your hope of home. Filing into their places by the rowlocks, my oarsmen dipped their long oars in the surf, and we moved out again on our seafaring. So again, it was another thing set up to get the men wanting to stay someplace else. So once you ate the lotus, you wanted to stay there and eat lotuses forever. I'll let you draw your own conclusions on that one.